Hey everybody! Today we're going to do something a little bit different from the usual content you'd see on my channel. Over the course of the quarantine, I grew more and more interested in the prospect of building computers for other people, with channels such as Christopher Yee and Pinoy Knows Tech, for example, being my main inspirations. Though, with what is happening in the world right now, it became increasingly difficult to buy computer parts as the demand for these parts suddenly skyrocketed with the onset of online classes. And even then, prices for specific parts in the Philippines are extremely high compared to their American counterparts. An issue that Low Spec Gamer would take note of in his video on the Athlon 3000G. With this in mind, and with a request to build from my sister, I wanted to make a PC with parts that are readily available on big sellers such as EasyPC and Lazada, using completely brand new hardware so as to eliminate worries of getting bad parts and etc. Alright, let's begin. First off, the CPU. I went with, hands down, my favorite budget CPU on the market, the Athlon 3000G. Many people might ask why I didn't go with a Pentium processor instead to be able to squeeze out as many frames as possible, and it's simply because that processor is not as readily available, whereas Athlons are everywhere on Lazada, Shopee, EasyPC, you name it. For the motherboard, I use an A320M HDV from Asrock. Very basic board, nothing much to say here. For the cooler, I didn't really want to use the dinky, tiny Athlon CPU cooler because, I don't know, just aesthetics wise, it's not a good thing, but if you have nothing else, definitely just go for it. Instead, I opted to use a Rate Stealth cooler, which came from one of my old builds, so, hey, recycling. For the RAM, I went with 2 sticks of Ramsta 4GB 2666 DDR4 memory. Definitely does the job for an Athlon CPU, and you get the added benefit of having dual channel memory. These came at around 945 pesos per stick, and that's around $20 US. Definitely a good deal that I nabbed straight away when I saw it. For the case, I went with this T-Gears Bandit case, and it's cheap feeling, but well, it has a tempered glass side panel, and my sister wanted a pastel or pink colored case, and this was the cheapest option at around 1400 pesos. If you live in the Philippines, I would definitely recommend buying a rack keysig or something of that sort instead. A cheaper but much more durable option. For storage, I went with this Hikvision 240GB SSD, which I'm pretty sure is lacking a DRAM cache, but is still worlds better than something like a mechanical hard drive. I got this for around 1,600 pesos, which is around 35 or so US dollars. As you can see, this case has adequate cable management, but if you do have something that like a Cougar XTC, like I bought, the 500 watt version, it is very difficult to get it into its proper routing spot. For the graphics card, I went with the cheapest 1050 Ti I could find on EasyPC, as this would definitely be enough for 1080p gaming on the specific games that she requested to run, which are the new game Genshin Impact, loving that game by the way, and League of Legends. She also said that if she could run Monster Hunter World on it, that would be great. This card cost around 6,500 to 6,600 pesos, which is around 134 to 35 US dollars. As I mentioned earlier, the power supply I went for is the Cougar XTC 500W, which has an 80 plus rating and is plenty for the Athlon and the 1050ti together. Only thing I don't like about this is the ketchup and mustard cables, but any 500 or 450 watt 80 plus rated power supply will do for this build. I got this for 2,500 pesos on Lazada, which is around 52 or so US dollars. And with that horrendous excuse for cable management, the build is done. One of the case fans was hitting the LED connector for the front LEDs, so I put two fans on the top as intake instead. Oh, and by the way, the fans are just 130 pesos each on Lazada. That's like $3.50 per fan, and they're really not too bad. Only bad thing is that they're powered by Molex, so it was hell to cable manage. Now for the benchmarks. On Genshin Impact, we were getting around 50 to 60 FPS on the highest settings, but around 40 or so FPS when in villages and such. Ramping it up to 1920 by 1080 drops the FPS down to around 40, but dropping the graphics down to medium gets it to a stable 55 to 60 FPS. There's no question whether this computer can run League of Legends or not, because it definitely can. On the highest settings possible, this game averages at around 200 FPS on 1920 by 1080. Monster Hunter World runs surprisingly well, averaging 40 to 50 FPS on low with textures at 1024. Definitely playable. So now, all that's left is to give it.